course, we know unemployment is biting really hard, but we don't want the story to remain the same for particularly young Nigerians. And the goal for this conversation is to ensure that, well, you plug that skills gap, land your dream job. Yes, it is possible. And this morning we have joining us in the studio someone who can help you walk through the very, very tricky waters of employment in Nigeria. We have Oluyemi Adeosun. He's on the Governing Council, an elected member of the Chartered Institute of Personal Management. That's the Apex HR body, a research fellow, Lagos Business School, over 18 years of experience, and of course, human resources professional. Good morning. Thank you for joining us.
He has 47 research papers.
Thank you so much. Good morning. Thank you for having me.
I mean, if we had to go through your CV, because I imagine you have a CV as well.
It's a long one.
It's a long one.
Yes.
But speak to us, really. Maybe we should start by asking, why is there so much unemployment in Nigeria? I know recent research or analysis were done by the NBS in partnership with other bodies, and he put the unemployment figure low. But we've since seen the president speak to the one that we know about, the over 30%. So why do we have so much unemployment in Nigeria?
So, let me just start by saying that the change in employment rates is not out of place. You know, sometimes we blame regulators and agencies and stakeholders. They actually changed the rate following the ILO, International Labour Organization's adjustments
of the
methodology. So it's not an initiation of the Bureau of Statistics in Nigeria. Now, the timing. And the other thing will have been, once you are changing, you may need to also calibrate for the past, so that when we are comparing, we are not comparing 4.1 to 33%, because it will just suddenly make us look good.
But what do you think about the argument that rebasing has caused us to lose sight of what exactly is the magnitude of the situation?
And that is why I said, in rebasing our current reality, we should also have said Q1 2022 in the rebase format will have been, for example, is it 7.1? Just for comparison's sake. But rebasing is something that is normal in statistics from year to year. Otherwise, when you are comparing across countries, you will not be comparing in a reasonable manner.
Compare apples, oranges,
yes.
And all. But it looks like the government is still aware of the fact that we have 33% unemployment rate. So I wanted to ask, is it that because people are unemployable, or the jobs are not there? What exactly is responsible?
So there are multiple factors, part of which you have mentioned. First and foremost, there are always jobs. Two angles to these jobs. One, some people, because they are educated, see certain jobs beneath them. They don't want to do the job because they feel they are too educated for those kind of jobs.
Is that underemployment?
They will see it as underemployment. They will see it as underemployment. But sometimes, if you look at dignity in labor, it may not necessarily be underemployment, because sometimes you need to start from somewhere and grow to somewhere. The way to the dream may be a nightmare sometimes. I'm also trying to speak to the Nigerians listening, because I don't want it to be government.
Right.
You understand? Now, there are also jobs, for example, in tech space, IT space, for example, among others, that certain Nigerians don't have the skill set yet. So maybe there are 10,000 vacancies, you have 6,000 people fully qualified as at now. There's also information asymmetry, where there are jobs, but maybe the job is in Abuja, and then the person is location rigid. I want to be in Osogbo. If you want to do certain kind of jobs, you may need to be geographically mobile. Maybe move to Abuja, move to Lagos, move to Port Harcourt, or move to Bauchi.
But there are variables, within that possibility or availability, job availability. What if it's in Abuja and there are accommodation concerns in Abuja?
You will have to work around it. So if you want to be a pilot, you can't be a pilot in Elisha. With due respect, there's no airline there.
For now.
And there's no airport there.
We're working towards it, I guess.
But for example, if it is IT, you may be anywhere as long as you have good internet and electricity. So it depends on the sector you are playing. Okay, so again, people also need to know that the needs of the society is evolving, and the skill set required is evolving. Then there's also, from an individual perspective, passion and interest. But you must now look for the intersection between your passion your training, your interest, and the needs of the society. So if you are passionate about something, but the society is not interested in the service, you may need to navigate and evolve.
Okay, so what if I'm amenable to all of these requirements, location, skill set, information, and all of that, and I have other competing applicants? Take us through the mind of HR personnel now. What are they looking for in the candidates that will stand out in their own perception?
First and foremost, let me complicate the issue a little. Nigerians are not just competing with Nigerians for jobs in Nigeria. The job market has been globalized, because some of the roles, for example, IT, you could be in Kuwait, India, Pakistan, and be working in Nigeria, or for a Nigerian firm, or on a Nigerian project. But on the flip side, it also now opens Nigerians to global opportunities. So there are also Nigerians today living in Enugu, working for a firm in Kuwait, so that we get the two dimensions. However, back to your question, I will mention a few things organizations are looking for. I will be very generic so that we can relate. Irrespective of the nature of organization, every organization is looking for people who can help them make money. It doesn't matter whether you're a front desk, you are in sales, you are in HR, you are an engineer. We need people who will help us make money. It doesn't matter whether it is for profit or not for profit. The nomenclature will change. So an NGO will be talking about funds, donor. A bank will be talking about revenue, profit. But when we are speaking to a candidate, we are looking for a candidate that knows how their job, their role will help us make money. That's one. Two, every organization is looking for potential candidates that can help us manage costs. Again, it doesn't matter what your role is, because irrespective of your role, you can incur more costs for us. And no matter how much we earn, if our cost is higher, we'll go bankrupt. Three, every organization is looking for employees that can work within time. That's why we have SLA, service level agreement. That's why we have TAT, turnaround time. What is the greatest issue with customers? Not meeting time. So we need employees who can work within time. Again, employees, organizations, because they are thinking long term, are looking for candidates that have some leadership potentials. So that's why the basic role in an organization, in some we say management trainee. Even though we are at the base, we are already thinking management. So we are looking at the potential today that can you be our MD in 10 years time, 15 years time from today.
So how would you identify that candidate? What would feature in the answers to your questions when they're being interviewed?
First and foremost, the ability of the candidates to tell their historical story, linking to how you solved problems, how you innovated, how you made money, how you saved costs, how you handled projects within turnaround time.
Simple as that.
Simple. And then that's why many organizations will say, what leadership roles did you hold when you were on campus? It doesn't matter whether you are the departmental president, you are a fellowship, you are an association. All those things are indicators. So it's like predictive that if at this level you are class rep for 4 years and you are not impeached, and in every year you manage 12 lecturers and 150 students. Again, most students who are class rep will not remember to say that in their story because they are not aware of the potentials of what they have done. So a lot of people struggle in the job market, not because they don't have real stories, but they are not aware and they cannot connect that story to the reality. I'll give you one example or two. Someone read botany, went to a bank for an interview, and they asked her that was the relationship between botany and banking. And she responded that, do you know what it takes to be able to mention every plant by name? It is that same attention to detail I give to every of your clients so that we can provide them banking solutions. She got the job.
Beautiful.
So education should teach us how to think. Employers are looking for people who can think.
So it's not just about, the certificate you have, the color of your certificate. It's how you can link that with the job you're looking for. But
absolutely.
I don't know if this is how it is designed or what. It always looks like the employee or the person seeking the job is always holding the shorter end of the stick. Looks like the system is rigged against them, because in our conversation, it's essentially what the organization is looking for someone who can make money, someone who can cut costs, someone who can be leaders and the rest. Fantastic. But how about what the employee is looking for? Looking for an organization where there's good work-life balance, an organization that isn't toxic, an organization that puts the employee first, an organization that allows for growth and all of that. At what point do we begin to talk about this? Because as I said, it looks like the system is always rigged against the job seeker. Correct me if I'm wrong.
So thank you for bringing that perspective up. And to a large extent, it's very valid. But we also now need to profile the system. There are 2-3 categories of staff. And permit me. Talent. The system is not rigged against talent. Then worker or employee.
So there's a difference.
There are differences. So in football, let's use football. There are many players. The system is rigged against the average player, Nigerian local league.
Ouch.
But when Ronaldo got to Saudi Arabia, they waived the law on marital fidelity for him to bring him in. So again, let's go back to the individual. The system will always be rigged against an average mediocre. The system will always bend for a top performing talent. So what you need to do is, where is your competence? Where are you very good? The unions can only fight for average people, not for exceptional people.
So I imagine that also includes the employee or the talent's negotiating skills.
Absolutely.
The system will also be rigged against that talent that the system has identified as one that is worth what they are asking for. Am I correct?
So most organizations have pay ranges, pay scales for different categories of experience and expertise and competence. Okay, but before you come in, that is where the situation is. It's not unfamiliar or uncommon that you have 2,000, 5,000 people applying for 2 roles. So you have to screen. Now, you will not use average means to screen. That's why, for example, some organizations can say 2-1 and above. There's nothing wrong with 2-2, but you have 10,000 people. So when you say 2-1, it helps you prune from 10,000 to 2-5. Even as at that, 2-5 is too much. It's 2 slots. Then you have to put other criteria to screen and weed out.
20 years work experience and the rest.
That brings me to the next question, Kayode.
Yeah.
Why do vacancies that are put out there for competitive jobs, sometimes not necessarily the most competitive jobs, why do they narrow down the requirements to ages between 25 and 35? I mean, it makes some of us who are middle-aged feel bad about being middle-aged.
So globally and generally, age is not a factor in getting jobs done. Age becomes a factor if you are underage, because there is a law against child labor. But between 18 and 65, generally, age is not a factor. In Nigeria, we don't have clear-cut legislations yet, and no organization has been prosecuted for discriminating, because we call it discrimination. Why would you say 24 to 29, 26 to 31?
But they're set by HR specialists, HR representatives.
Not necessarily. And there are arguments for it. So if we are advertising an entry level means you are at the base of your career. If you are at the base of your career, it is assumed that you should not be above a certain age. Imagine you are 48 and you are at the base of your career. When would you get to MD? So chances are, looking at motivational factors, the 41-year-old woman entry level will not necessarily be able to get along with the 24-year-old entry level.
But is that
so we have a range so that everybody at that level is within that range, so that they can get along together at that level of experience. Then, all things being equal, if you are 42, except you just graduated at 40, you must have garnered experiences.
But is that not a bit of short-sightedness, borrowing from the strength of your first answer now, on the part of HR personnel, recruiters? Because a 42-year-old or a 48-year-old may have more experience and may live longer sometimes, pardon me for the extreme thought, may live longer than some between 24 and 35
So the
candidates.
primary issue, most oftentimes, is that the 42-year-old is overqualified for an entry-level role. So let's say, just hypothetical, there are 10 grades, and assume that you spend 2 to 3 years on each grade. If you enter at 26, by the time you are 44, you will have gotten to the peak. However, that entry level, there are competencies required, competencies, capabilities, because the age range were determined scientifically. So that's why it is not one age, 26. So we say, okay, between 24 and 29, you will have entry level requirements. Chances are, if you are 42, even if you have been sleeping every day, from your sleep, you will be overqualified for entry level. Do you get the logic? Now, I'm not saying it is right, and I'm not saying that there are not exceptions, but when you are 42, between 15 and 4, what were you doing? It can't be nothing.
I imagine a lot of people will have thoughts
so overqualification
on this one.
So
overqualification and underqualification are the same.
Well, let us know what you think. Hashtag CTV Morning Brief. I'm trying to digest a lot of this because I know it's always a big debate. The employment, the kind of factors that decide who is employed or not. It's always a big debate, but let's try to talk about the do's and don'ts of CV writing. I know that's like the biggest fear for a lot of people. How do I write my CV to make sure that once you see it, you fall in love with it, such that you see it and you think this person's a talent and not just an average mediocre? So if you can just walk us through the do's and don'ts of CV writing.
So quickly, I'll give us some ACT codes now. First and foremost, the CV is not just about you, the applicant. It is about the role. Note, I didn't say the organization. The role. So if I want to be, just to make it simple, a newscaster in a reputable global channel, go to LinkedIn, for example, look for the top 10 newscasters. I'm trying to make it very simple. When you check the top 10 or top 15, you will see trends that are common. Benchmark yourself against those trends. You will see certain technical words, industry words, technical jargons. Then you now build your own CV. Now, one or two things that will do for you, you may quickly identify some obvious gap, which you will now say, oh, in the next 6 months, in the next 1 year, let me fill it up. Meanwhile, you also now tailor your CV relative to mirror what you are looking at. Now, I'm not saying package. I'm not saying falsify information. If you reflect deeply, maybe, for example, you read mass communication, some of the courses you did, your internship, your IT, your freelance, you will now be able to articulate them in a way that will show that you are a potential global newscaster. Use that just as an example. So even if you are not looking for a job and you are looking for a promotion, the same thing, that next level, who are the top 10 people globally on that level right now? Check their CV, check their profile. What do they have in common? What are the extras that they have? That will help you. But your CV is not just story. So you have to put, for example, accomplishments.
How many pages, by the way?
Really, there are no standards.
Oh, really?
And if you are entry level and if you are a professor, it's not the same thing. But it doesn't matter whether it's a 1-pager, 2-pager, or 3-pager. The important thing is the information. Are you sharing, for example, accomplishments, sales targets, deliverables, things that you initiated, things that will show us you can make money, things that will show us you can save costs from your experience? Again, your experience, your past is a predictor of your future. Then, of course, things like the kind of trainings, education you have gathered, and the kind of insights you have gotten from those things. So it's not just saying, I did this and I did that. So I give you one example. So, for example, I went to the International School, University of Ibadan, secondary school. You can say, so what's the big deal? I did.
Oh, I finished from there as well.
Fantastic.
Oh, but great to meet you.
When I put that on my CV, and I had something like exposed to multicultural students, I'm telling you that if I join your organization, if your organization is multicultural, because I went to ISI for 6 years, I was used to foreigners, I will fit into your organization. Did you get that?
Okay. So if for somebody that has little experience and is targeting a role, can emphasize on strengths weaknesses, strengths, potential for achievement, and all of that. What about the overqualified who is also targeting a role?
So again, when you are overqualified, the first thing is you must look for your target. You must profile yourself. So when for the overqualified, don't start profiling the organization. First, profile yourself. When you profile yourself, now identify what are like the top 2-3 roles, industries that will naturally see your historicals as an asset. When you do that, you will now be able to align your interests with organizations that will value you. And in that instance, because they value you, they won't value you for entry-level role. It will probably be middle management or senior roles. So is that, sometimes in Nigeria, because you are looking for a job, you are just sending your CV anywhere for anything, for any role. No. It must be, where I work today. If I don't have 47 papers, I won't enter there.
So you have to curate your CV.
Exactly. Profile yourself. Where does it fit? Who will value what I have? Which industry, which sector, which organization?
And which role?
Which role?
But can I use AI to write? I know people are doing that already.
Yes.
Can I use AI to write my CV?
You can. But don't forget
does it reduce my chances of getting the job?
No, it doesn't. But don't forget that HR too can use AI to profile your CV.
I know something that happens.
And to check out your CV.
Yes, and I can use AI to know that you used AI.
So there was a story, I'm not going to share it so I don't give people ideas, but you're saying that it's a thing that is widely accepted now and people can, of course, explore that.
I won't use the word accepted, but I will say it is used. But let me also give people information because we are trying to help Nigerians here. If I want to use AI to write my CV, the first thing I will do, I will populate the AI chat box with information about me.
So you still have to do the work.
You have to do the work because AI should enhance what you put. You can't just say AI write CV for Oluyemi Adeosun. Who is Oluyemi? But if I, for example, say I put all the places I've worked, all my accomplishments, all my successes, all my education, I can tell AI, for example, that help me write a cover letter based on this. Or I can say AI, based on this initial CV I've put down, help me enhance it for this kind of role.
Okay, so that makes it legitimate.
Yes, because it is enhancing your profile. But if you give it nothing, or you take somebody else's data and fit in, it will enhance it, but it's enhancing lies.
So you're saying that if I use AI to write my CV, I put in all the information, it would not reduce my chances of getting this job?
It won't.
Okay. We can take that to the bank, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but that's reassuring.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, or maybe you wanted to put something.
Okay, you go ahead.
Okay. So Japa
is
a thing that I wanted to also speak about because we're talking human capital. And it's not just human capital for us, it's human capital for our nation as well, for organizations in our country. Because if you build the organizations, naturally you'd have a nation that is well built. But this Jaar Syndrome, as people have described it, how much of a headache is it for you, and particularly for organizations? Is it a major headache now? How are organizations trying to fill the gaps left behind by some of these talents that have now left to work in other climes? What exactly is going on with HR and Jaar?
So to be frank, it is a challenge, but it's a global challenge.
What?
Jaar is not a local challenge. It is global. Don't forget Brexit. People are leaving US for Canada and vice versa.
Is it on the scale
UK for Canada
of Nigeria?
Relative to their past is a large scale. So I need us to get it. Jaar is a big problem for us in Nigeria, but it is a global problem. Global problem. Having said that, it's also a global opportunity. Many people in Nigeria today have had accelerated career growth because their bosses left. So it's not all bad news. Where the problem will be is your boss goes, you have not developed the competencies to move up. So you will be carrying a burden, you don't have the competence, and you won't be promoted, you won't earn the salary remunerated, you'll be acting. So again, what HR has been doing in the past, but this Jaar has even further made it even more essential, is what we call succession planning. no matter the kind of people experience you put in your organization, no matter how non-toxic it is, no matter your welfare package, someone else can always pay better at any point in time. You understand? So there is what we call knowledge management system to show that whatever you are doing today is so documented that somebody else can effortlessly take it. Because people relocate for different reasons. Someone may marry and go and meet their spouse. Someone may get a better job. Someone may die. So there's knowledge management system, and that's part of the institutionalism for the organization. There is also the succession planning. Succession planning is focusing largely on the key roles, and you ensure that there are people in the pipeline, 2-3 people. 3 people hopefully will not japa at the same time. Okay. And as you are filling that role, you are creating that succession planning. You are thinking, and that's why we call it a business continuity. You just keep at it. You keep at it.
Interesting. My next concern is about inclusion and gender sensitivity. For the public sector, we know that there are mandates by the state government that there must be consideration for persons with disability, when they are recruiting. But for the private sector, how sensitive are recruiters to these issues? I can talk about Channels Television. We're very sensitive when it comes to gender, and for pregnant women, we have a very favorable policy here. But for other aspects of the private sector, from your knowledge base, how sensitive? So
for the private sector, there are 2 segments. The OPS, which is organized private sector. And then we also have the informal sector.
I thought you were going to say disorganized private sector.
No, the informal sector. So I won't speak for the informal sector, right, because they are, so to speak, under the radar. But for most organizations in the organized private sector, for example, if you're a PLC, even if you're not a PLC, there are corporate governance regulations. Enforcement and adherence and compliance may vary from organization to organization depending on the internal corporate governance. And so if you are, a PLC, for example, there are SEC regulators. Now, those rules that apply to the public service actually apply. So the bigger the organization, the less likely it can operate under the radar. But if you are an organization of 6, it may not be easy for you to tell an organization of 6 that they must include one handicap. But if you are 1,000, come on. Or if you are 500, you should be able to have 2 blind people, 2 this. So I've worked in big places, and intentionally we had a recruitment drive. We even collaborated with the association, maybe for the deaf, for the blind. But of course, there must also be people who have certain minimum competence. We may waive some of the requirements or lower some of the requirements and intensify onboarding training for them to make them catch up. But there are some rules. If you don't have the capacity, you don't have it, whether you're a man or a woman, handicapped or able. And there are some disabled people met, they're exceptional. They even got the job not out of an affirmative action. One thing I've also noticed with quite a number of, so to speak, disabled people I've met, is like God compensates. Their memory can be superb. Their attention to details. I've worked in a place where I have like 6 blind people in the call center. Their level of empathy, a normal person can demonstrate it. So people now call the call center and say, can I speak to so and so? They won't know there is a blind person.
Oh dear.
So I'm just also trying to show that those people have special abilities that organizations can. But most organizations, because now we are talking about the environment, we are talking about sustainability and governance. Right. So now more than ever before, more organizations, especially organizations who have to do reporting, if you are looking for funding, for example, you have to show your gender sensitivity, you have to show how you are managing all the stakeholders.
So sorry, Kadi.
So it's in your interest to do it. Even your selfish organizational interest. Otherwise, you probably not get funding, or the kind of funding you want.
So I want you to address those seeking their dream jobs in 2024 now with information. What's the quantum of vacancies that recruiting companies are getting, across board from all the different companies and with specific professional fields? What's the quantum of vacancies that are available? And should they be hopeful?
So let me start by addressing the mindset. So I don't know whether I should take the old one or the new one. So let's take the old one that was about 30% unemployment. The first thing, don't look at that 30% unemployment. 30% unemployment means 70% are employed. 70 to 30. You should be one of those 70. That's the first mindset. Don't approach your job search from a scarcity perspective. If anything is scarce, it is value. So as the candidate, do you have value? What are the values? Identify your strengths, your competencies. Ensure that your CV, your LinkedIn profile, whatever, reflects your competencies depending on your field. Have portfolios on YouTube, different platforms to show track record of your work. Then profile organizations. Just like organizations are profiling employees, identify the top 10 preferred organizations you want to work, the roles there, who are the people there, try and reach out. Even you can send cold mails. Most organizations will have maybe career ads. And many people have gotten jobs through a cold mail. There was no vacancy, so to speak. But the CV, the cover letter, the portfolio was so compelling, maybe they were kept in the pipeline. When an opportunity came out, then they reached out to them. Then two, there are vacancies every day for multiple reasons. People are migrating. People are, in quotes, moving to better roles. JAPA is part of it. But does your CV reflect and mirror the JD? Most organizations will use a job description. So you to do self-analysis and check and update, then train. You see, there's a strong correlation between learn and earn.
Absolutely. I was going to come to that point, but we have to wind down now because I know a lot of people have landed their dream job, but it's becoming a nightmare and they need to ask for a raise. For those who want to ask for a raise this year, they've seen inflation rate. They've also seen what the company is earning.
Foreign exchange.
You know, what is the best way to ask for a raise? We can do that in 30 seconds.
Again, don't apply for a raise with sentiments. It's not our business that the economy is tougher or that you have more children. Come from the place of value. How much have you earned for the organization in the last window? How much cost have you saved in the last window? What is your proposal to earn more in the next window? What's your proposal to save more costs in the next window? Then ask for a fraction of that for a raise.
It's not too much to ask for, right?
Not too much.
I'm tempted to sing our school anthem. This thing shall be.
Oh dear. Okay, you guys are loud.
But it's great to have you.
Next time I'll have someone who went to my own school,
let's
right?
try that, right? Oluyemi Adeosho on the Government Council of CIPM, Research Fellow, Lagos Business School, Human Resource Professional with almost 50 papers published. Thank you so much for your time. I tell you, it's been very eye-opening. I imagine a lot of people are better for it. So that's been the conversation on earning your dream job and perhaps getting a raise this year. We'll go to break now. When we return, this conversation is one that is equally important. You don't want to miss this. Stay with us right here on The Morning Brief.